Tim, what has Jimmy Butler brought to Golden State here?
Well, look, we've talked about a lot of the things, and everybody keeps echoing the same things. Obviously, the toughness, the edge, the two-way player, 20 points a game is nice. But for me, I think it's his passing and his ability to understand where to go to occupy open spaces. His IQ is off the charts. We didn't really talk that much about it when Jimmy Butler came to Golden State because we knew they needed his offense. They needed his ability to isolate, get to the foul line. That helps their defense. It helps Steph Curry rest when he's taking, a minute of real time to go shoot those 2 free throws. All of those things matter. But I'm so impressed with his ability to fit in the confines of the continuity of their offense, because that was what you didn't know. How's that going to work out exactly? Well, Jimmy Butler just knows how to play basketball, and that's what Steve Kerr was alluding to. Simple plays that fit, and he keeps the flow moving. You don't have to disrupt anything for Jimmy Butler to be productive. That's been, I think, the biggest breath of fresh air in this acquisition, and there's no doubt they run out of the tunnel different. They feel better about themselves. They feel like they now have enough to compete against whoever's in front of them, and I'm not sure they did prior to Jimmy arriving there.
Malika, this isn't, to me, a honeymoon. This just feels different. You talk about practice, right? In Miami, he really barely practiced. In Golden State, he is practicing. In Golden State, he's staying late, showing up early, in film session, in the meal room, the training room. He's spending time with teammates, trying to ingratiate himself more and more. And the commitment that the Warriors gave him with the extension, that's the same commitment he's given back. And in recent weeks, he's had dinner with Draymond Green. They played dominoes. I do expect him and Stephen Curry to get together here very soon on an intimate level. And what we're seeing here is a repeat of history. You think about players like Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, both playing a lot better since Jimmy Butler has been there. And this is the most important stat to me.
Yeah.
Before Jimmy Butler got there, the Warriors were minus 90 when Stephen Curry was off the floor. With Jimmy Butler's arrival in the last few weeks, the Warriors are plus 30. That alone makes this trade a massive win for the Warriors.
It's always been the Golden State Warriors sort of issue, is how do they contend with the non-Steph minutes? How do they stay afloat in those minutes that he's off the floor? And with Jimmy, they've looked pretty good so far. I think the definition of not being a honeymoon stage is this lasts for a while and they get their goal of being a top 6 seed. How sustainable is that, Brian?
Well, though, they've got the second easiest schedule coming in the West.
Right.
So when you look at that, you also look at it, they're 2 games out of being in 6, which is their goal.
Right.
What I found interesting is what Draymond said. I know some people smiled at it when Draymond said this team can win the championship. I'm going to pay attention to that a little bit. While I'm not certainly saying that, the reason I think he feels that way, number one, he likes the direction of the team. Number two, he's looking at the teams in front and saying, this is really unclear how this is going to fall. You look at the East, the Cavs have been 1 for the whole season. The Celtics have number 2 locked down. The Knicks are pretty solidly in 3. You got a pretty good idea who's going to be 4 or 5. After the Thunder in 1, I don't know what's going to happen in the West.
Right.
And Draymond feeling that and seeing the opportunities here, I'm going to take that into account as I watch how this unfolds.
Well, Wolves, they made this a game. They'll have another shot tonight on the road in Oklahoma City, a little home and home. Tim, though, can anyone challenge this team, OKC, in the West right now?
Well, I just think right now it would be unfair to put anybody in their class. They deserve to be on a shelf by themselves in the Western Conference. The question that remains is, and Wendy was alluding to this, where does it fall after this, and who's going to continue to make moves to close the gap? There's some interesting teams for sure. We just touched on a couple of them with Golden State and the Lakers. But when I look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, they've got the clean sheet. They don't have weaknesses. They've got enough shooting, an elite level offensive player that there's no answer for, ton of depth, bigs, and then most importantly, I think this is the best defensive team I've seen all year. And Minnesota was able to put up a number against them. It still wasn't enough. So for me, Oklahoma City right now is by themselves. Let's see who could try to chase them down.
Can I just make a quick comment about this game? Thunder were great, finished strong. Ant Edwards, who is playing again, missing some guys.
Yeah.
He got his 14th technical in this game. And I understand that Ant is an emotional player. We don't want to trap that down. But 14 techs, 16 techs is a suspension. He's got to be very careful going forward here. This team, with where they are in the standings, and they've had some losses because they've had injuries, they can't afford him getting suspended.
Absolutely.
And we were all over Luka Doncic earlier in his career when he was dancing around with these types of situations. He's been suspended for techs. Ant has got to hold himself to a standard to control his emotions. And in this game, he could have gotten the tech earlier. The referee actually gave him some rope. And so I think that's something to just pay attention to going forward with the Timberwolves.
You mentioned also the Timberwolves. They are shorthanded right now. As for Minnesota, help could be on the way here, Shams. Maybe not tonight, but what more can you tell us?
Yeah, Malika, so Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, they are out tonight, but there is optimism that they'll be able to make their return to the lineup. At some point, the team is on a 4-game road trip. Tonight in Oklahoma City is when it starts. It ends Sunday in Phoenix. Julius Randle had really started to come on. The Timberwolves were 10-4 before Julius Randle suffered a groin strain in his last 14 games, including 5 wins in a row. So getting him back, Dante DiVincenzo was also shooting the ball very well from the field before his toe injury.
Yeah, the Timberwolves, I mean, Ant told me that it's been a roller coaster of a season for them, and partly, right, because of those injuries. JJ, he's a self-proclaimed basketball sicko, saying that he can't take a nap. He's envisioning this. But, Tim, it worked, and it has worked for the Lakers since January 15th. They've been the best team in the NBA. Why is that?
Well, I think, look, number one, he has ideas, right? He always has. He had them for years before he took any job, but now he's able to implement them, and he's got certain ways to see the game. But here's the thing that I think has surprised us about this team. It was their ability to come up with game plans that are this effective defensively and pull it off based on what their personnel looks like. That, I think, is what was a little bit eye-opening. And here's an example. You know, it starts here, impeding any sort of cut. Don't make it easy for him to move. Then on the weak side, you got another bump here so he can't just roll into the post. Let's go ahead, and that initial defender, he's run all the way to the other side of the court where you got a front and you've got a guy behind. Now, look, the spacing's not great, and these guys aren't looking at the rim. But here's the final opportunity. Is Jokic going to flash there and get the ball? Look at the play by Jackson Hayes. Always aware. Aaron Gordon not looking at the rim helps out the Lakers, but bottom line is you can see Jokic, he starts to show a little bit of body language there on this possession. It's frustrating being bottled up to that extent. Takes incredible amount of dedication to it and attention to detail. Like, any mistakes made against him, he's going to get position leverage and he's going to score easily. They didn't make those mistakes, and you barely noticed Nikola Jokic involved in the game offensively, and I can't even believe I'm saying that sentence.
First off, I'd like to commend the Lakers social team with the low-angle hero shot. JJ, Ridley Scott.
It did give me a little bit of the Court of Gold vibes of
without question. Beautiful job done. Victories all around. Secondly, you mentioned their best record since January 15th.
Yes.
They've been the #1 defense since January 15th, and this, Malika, is what has my attention. 2 years ago, when the Lakers made that run to the Western Conference Finals, the indicator on that they were going to make a run was that they were the #1 defensive team in the NBA after they made those trade deadline deals.
Right.
I cannot believe that they are playing this well defensively with being so small in the middle. Now, they have great size on the perimeter, and J.J. Redick is employing a scheme that is using that size. Now, I have to see how the teams in the league react to this, because they're seeing some new stuff from the Lakers, and they'll adjust. If this was a playoff series with the Nuggets, we would see an adjustment for Game 2 with Jokic.
So good at. That's what JJ is so good at.
What has my attention isn't so much Luka. I know Luka is great. I know he's going to score. What has my attention is how they're defending. And the stat that sticks out to me from that game, Nikola Jokic only got 7 shots. He only was able to take 7 shots.
It was his worst offensive game of the season.
Remarkable.
To me, J.J. Redick and that Luka Doncic relationship and how they're able to have fun. And J.J. Redick is probably the only coach that's able to really rib on Luka Doncic on a daily basis about defense and needing to see more defense out of Luka Doncic. Last night, season high, 4 steals. That's what I'm looking at. Their defensive efficiency, maybe the first game, they struggled with Luka Doncic there, but I think the more he gets his rhythm, the more he gets his repetition, this Lakers team is looking like it has the ability to be very competitive in the West.